Tuscany. The name itself breathes history, sunshine baked into ancient stones, the scent of cypress trees on the warm air. And in the heart of this rolling landscape, nestled amongst olive groves and vineyards, stood Villa Rossi. For generations, it wasn't just a home, it was the custodian of a secret. A deep, ruby-red secret held in glass bottles. The family's cherished cherry liqueur. Giorgio Rossi felt the weight of that tradition in his very bones. Each summer, the ritual began. The harvest, the careful selection, the slow maceration according to his great-grandmother Nonna Elena's exacting recipe. A recipe whispered down through time, unchanged, sacrosanct. It wasn't just liqueur, it was liquid heritage, a taste of summers past, bottled sunshine and memory. But this year, the Tuscan sun had been less generous. The air held a worried stillness. The cherry trees, usually groaning under the weight of their bounty, offered only a meager scattering of fruit. Sparse clusters clung stubbornly to branches, beautiful but tragically few. Panic began to coil in Giorgio's stomach. This wasn't just a bad harvest, it threatened the continuity, the very essence of the family legacy he guarded so fiercely. The orders, placed months in advance by loyal customers scattered across the globe, couldn't be fulfilled with this pathetic yield. Failure wasn't an option. It felt like letting Nonna Elena down, letting the villa itself down. Desperation gnawed at him. He needed help. More hands, faster work, someone to salvage what little the trees offered. He put out the word, reluctantly opening the hallowed process to an outsider. And the universe, in its infinite, ironic wisdom, sent him Zoe. Zoe. She arrived from Australia like a cheerful, sun-bleached whirlwind, all boundless energy and infectious laughter that echoed strangely in the villa's quiet courtyards. She had a charming disregard for hushed reverence and an enthusiasm that bordered on chaotic. She knew nothing of Tuscan tradition, Nonna Elena's ghost, or the almost religious solemnity with which Giorgio approached the liqueur. She just saw sunshine, cherries, and a summer job. Giorgio watched her, torn between apprehension and a grudging admiration for her sheer force of will. He explained the process, emphasizing the importance of selecting the perfect cherries, ripe but firm, unblemished. He demonstrated the gentle handling required. He thought he had been clear. He hoped he had been clear. The days that followed were a blur of frantic activity. Zoe, true to form, attacked the task with gusto, her bright chatter filling the usually silent orchards. Giorgio, supervising, felt a sliver of hope return. Maybe, just maybe, they could gather enough. Then came the moment in the cool, stone-flagged cellar where the magic, or the disaster, truly began. The collected cherries sat in wide baskets, gleaming like dark jewels. Giorgio reached in, ready to begin the next crucial step, the one Nonna Elena insisted gave the liqueur its unique depth, its soul. His hand stopped. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. He plunged his hands deeper into the basket, then into the next, a cold dread spreading through him. The feel was incomplete. Smooth. Too smooth. He lifted a handful. Perfectly ripe, beautiful cherries. All meticulously, painstakingly pitted. Every single one. The stones, the vital heart of the flavor according to the sacred recipe, were gone. Discarded. He looked up, his eyes finding Zoe, who was cheerfully wiping juice from her hands, oblivious. The air crackled. Generations of tradition screamed betrayal inside him. Hours of meticulous work, generations of knowledge, undone by a misunderstanding, by cheerful ignorance. He opened his mouth to unleash the frustration, the despair, the sheer Italian rage bubbling within him. But looking at Zoe's earnest, slightly confused face, the anger caught in his throat. Shouting wouldn't bring the pits back. Blame wouldn't salvage the harvest. It was ruined. The legacy, shattered. Or was it? A strange calm descended. What was done, was done. The cherries were pitted. The tradition, for this year at least, was broken. And in that moment of brokenness, a different thought emerged, wild and unexpected. What if? He looked at the pitted cherries. He looked at Zoe, who now looked worried, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. The stones, Giorgio said, his voice quiet but strained. Nonna Elena's recipe, it needs the stones. For the flavor. The bitterness. The depth. Zoe's eyes widened. Oh, she breathed. Oh, Giorgio, I'm so sorry. I thought they needed to be clean, ready. Like for a pie. There it was. The cultural gulf, the innocent mistake. And instead of anger, a strange, almost hysterical chuckle escaped Giorgio. Ruined. Completely, utterly ruined. Or, reimagined. It's okay, Zoe, he said, surprising himself. It's different. He looked around the cellar, his eyes landing on a bunch of rosemary hanging from a beam, drying for kitchen use. An idea sparked, fueled by desperation and a sudden, reckless impulse. Tradition was already out the window. Why not embrace the chaos? What if, Giorgio mused aloud, picking a sprig of rosemary, inhaling its sharp, piney scent, what if we add something else? Something unexpected? Zoe leaned in, curiosity replacing her worry. Like what? Like this, Giorgio said, holding up the rosemary. Maybe the sweetness needs a counterpoint now. Something herbal. Something bold. It was madness. Adding rosemary to Nonna Elena's sacred cherry liqueur? It was heresy. But it was also intriguing. They spent the rest of the day experimenting, crushing rosemary, adjusting quantities, tasting the sweet, pitted cherry juice now infused with this aromatic newcomer. It was unfamiliar, yes. But it wasn't bad. In fact, it was surprisingly compelling. A new harmony emerged from the near disaster. They made the liqueur. Not Nonna Elena's recipe, but something new, born of a mistake and a moment of shared, reckless inspiration. They bottled it, labeling it simply Villa Rossi Liqueur, unsure of what the reaction would be. The first hesitant orders were shipped out. And then, something incredible happened. Emails flooded in. Phone calls buzzed. People weren't just accepting the new taste, they were raving about it. The accidental liqueur, the cherry surprise as some started calling it, was a sensation. The missing bitterness from the pits had been replaced by the intriguing herbal notes of rosemary, creating something modern, complex, utterly captivating. Orders poured in from restaurants in New York, boutiques in London, homes in Sydney. The villa, once quiet with worry, now hummed with the activity of packing and shipping. Giorgio and Zoe, the unlikely collaborators, worked side by side, laughter now mingling freely with the clinking of bottles. The entire batch sold out, exceeding Giorgio's wildest dreams. As they packed the very last case, one single bottle remained on the old wooden table. Giorgio picked it up. He looked at Zoe, her eyes bright with shared success, the memory of the near catastrophe now a fond anecdote. He took a permanent marker and wrote carefully on the label, crossing out the simple Villa Rossi liqueur. His script was elegant, heartfelt. Only for us, he wrote. Then, beneath it, 50% cherries. 50% madness. 100% you. Tradition hadn't been broken that summer. It had simply found